Okay, good evening. I am Sergio Lizalde. I am a student of Spanish and English in Universidad Pedagógica Nacional. And right now, I'm gonna talk a little bit about English, about what is the best way to teach English. So there are two options. That is teaching English as a lingua franca or teaching English as an standard language. In my opinion, it's much better to teach English as a lingua franca because when we are in a classroom, what we want is that our students get to communicate in English, but we are not pretending that our students know the standard English. So I consider that teaching English should be directed to communication and not to an standard English. Also, because when we teach English as a standard language, it's necessary to say that a lot of times it's for economical or for politics powers. So, for example, the Latin that it was a language that it was spoken. The Latin was a lingua franca, but it was not an standard English. So people didn't know, for example, all the grammar of Latin, but they knew to communicate in Latin, and that's very important because that was the language for the business and for the Rome Empire. So that's an example. So I consider that when we want to teach English, we have to think that our students communicate in the best way. But it's not necessary that our students know all the grammar of the language. However, it is important to say that, for example, there is a counter-argument about this. So, for example, the Education Ministry, the Colombian Education Ministry, they consider that it's much better to teach English and a standard language because they consider that all students have to know a little bit about British English or American English. But in my opinion, I consider that when we teach English as an standard language, is because is because of economical or political power. And it's true that, for example, you can communicate if you know standard English, but I consider that you cannot. But I consider that it's more complicated to learn English as a lingua as an standard English. I'm so sorry. Um, Also, I consider that, for example, when we teach standard English in the schools, we are teaching the grammar, for example, the verb to be, the past voice, and else. But we are not teaching to communicate. We are teaching just a little bit of English, that is the standard English, but just the grammar. But if we teach, for example, English as a lingua franca, we can teach to communicate to people, and it doesn't matter that the people don't know the grammar correctly. According to Crystal Devi, for example, in her book, English as a global language, Crystal Devi Christian Devi wrote a book about that, and he said that, uh, English was learned as a standard English is because of economical and political powers. But he said that before that it was necessary to do that. Before the globalization, it was necessary to do that because the global language or a lingua franca wasn't standard, but that it worked very well because it led to people to communicate. So he gave us an example, that is the Latin language, and he said that before English became in a standard language, before that Latin was the global language, and that it was a lingua franca, and that it was a standard, that it was a standard. But he said that Latin was just for communicate, and that it doesn't matter if people know the grammar or not. However, he said after that, for industrial revolution, for globalization, English got to be a global language, and that it was an standard language. It was not a lingua franca, but it was an standard language. So, in conclusion, I consider that it's much better to teach English as a lingua franca and not as an standard language. Also, because if you go, for example, to USA, it's not important to know the grammar, but it's important to know to communicate with other people. So that was my video. That's my opinion, and I hope that you have enjoyed it.